Hey everybody, hope you're all doing good today. Just heading down right now to Grand Lake. I got an instructional fishing trip down there today, and just wanted to take the few minutes while I'm driving here and sort of give you the fishing report I've been given, pretty much, I guess, bi-weekly or so. And today what I want to do is I want to cover the three lakes I've been fishing a lot: Table Stockton, and Grand. Seems like it's pretty popular with the anglers right now, those three lakes. So I'll get into it here. Start out with Stockton here. I've been fishing Stockton quite a bit the last couple weeks. The lake's finally starting to go down in Stockton. God, it's been, like all the lakes around here, it's been high for so long. And right now the lake is, it's 1.5 or 2 foot over normal. The water's finally dropped out enough where the bushes aren't much of a factor anymore like they have been for the last couple months. And so it's starting to open up some other patterns to work there. There's really two different things that are working right now at Stockton, depending upon how you like to fish. Stockton is all about, and a lot of the lakes are like this, but particularly Stockton. Stockton is all about fishing deep brush. If you're fishing Stockton from June, July, and August, maybe even into September, yeah, you can catch some fish on the lake, but you're never gonna catch the quality fish. Or if you fish tournaments, even small tournaments, you can't ever hardly win a tournament unless you're fishing deep brush right now. So, the thing that you have to look for on this, there's a ton of brush in Stockton. There's a ton of state planted brush. There's a ton of man-made planted brush. There's so many guys that fish Stockton Lake that they've actually went out and bought pontoon boats, dismantled the pontoon boats, and they plant brush out of these pontoon boats. These are serious dudes that put a lot of brush on the lake. So one of the things you have to do in order to be successful in Stockton right now is you have to spend a lot of time idling around with your electronics looking for brush. That's the big key. I don't like fishing like that. I'll do it when I have to, and this is one time that you have to do that. But the key on Stockton right now is since there is so much brush on the lake deep, you've got to really narrow down to what's holding the fish. And there's two different ways to do that. First of all, if you're really good with your electronics, you know how to set them up, and you're really good at deciphering what they are, you can actually graph over these piles and actually see the fish in them. If you're not that good at it, the key is finding out the brush in the right depth. And this is just a matter of fishing through it a lot of times. Right now, the thermocline at Stockton Lake is just a little bit shallower than 20 feet. So, for me, the best success up there has been, getting in those piles that top out like 12 to 15 feet. And a lot of those bass will be suspended over the top of those piles right now. First thing I like to do is I like to run a deep dive crankbait through them. I've been using that Mega Bass DBX 300 quite a bit. And if that doesn't work, I'll back off and I'll cast a big worm like a Zoom Old Monster or a football head jig into those brush piles and catch them. If you don't like fishing like that, you can run up the creeks and up the rivers, and you can catch a lot of fish right now. Just basically cranking rocky banks with a square bill crankbait and using the Mega Bass S crank, quite a bit in that particular area. And I did have one good day last week. I went up there and I did have a day where I had 14 or 15 pounds shallow cranking up the river. So that's a good bag of fish, but it can't really compete with the deep brush fish, the guys that are going to win fishing like that. So anyway, that's the two different things at Stockton there. Table Rock will just not come down. It's just so high still. Not a lot has changed since my last report on Table Rock a couple of weeks ago. You still have the same things working. The main thing for me has basically been getting out off those deeper, flatter banks, rounded main lake points, graphing for those fish. They're suspended, 10 to 15 feet down, over 30 to 50 feet. A lot of these are smallmouth bass that you're catching. I've been fishing, from like more than anything else from like the Highway 13 bridge to the dam area, because the cleaner water down there tends to get those fish suspended a little bit more. and you can catch a lot of fish like that. Fishing the Mega Bass 3-inch spark shad on the 1/8 ounce Okashira jig head, 6-pound test line. Excuse me. You can also catch fish on those same points, particularly if you move more into the midsection or up on the lower end of the James. You can catch those same fish that are more bottom oriented. A lot of those fish will get out on those gravel banks and points, and they'll get down on the bottom and, you know, anywhere between, you know, 10 to 25 feet. And, you know, you can catch those fish dragging a football head jig, slow reeling the swim bait across the bottom, Ned rig, shaky head, you know, stuff like that. So there's two different populations of fish that actually are using that deeper water right now. And as the summer goes on, particularly over the next few weeks, you're going to start seeing a lot of those fish start to suspend out into the tops of the timber, particularly, you know, some of the timber that you can find out off the main lake, the bluff banks, that type of stuff, bluff ends. That's going to be one deal. Now the flipping has actually picked up at Table Rock down there. It's been, for me, it's really been spotty. You know, ever since the water came up, since it came up so quick and it came up so high. But I guess right now the fish are getting so conditioned to that cover being flooded that they're starting to filter into it a little bit more. So the flipping bite is picking up a little bit. You get an isolated good fish once in a while, but for the most part, the flipping bite is producing a little bit smaller fish on the average than the deep fish. But the whole key on flipping right now is covering a lot of water. You can pattern the fish a little bit on specific bushes day to day, whether they be on willows, sycamore trees, you know, the viney type, you know, just the real gnarly viney type trees that are out there. You can pattern them on the particular trees. But for me, more than anything else, it's been a matter of just covering the water. I may catch fish out of 3 or 4 different type of trees in one day. So in order to cover this water, one tip I'll give you is you need to be fishing a fairly heavy, small bait. I'm using that Z-Craw Junior with like a 1/2 ounce sinker on it that drops pretty quick. That allows you to get that bait down, you know, 10 foot through those limbs pretty quick, sometimes even a 3/4 ounce. And if I'm fishing, you know, like by myself and I'm not really interested in getting a lot of bites, but I'm focused on more quality, I'm flipping a big 1 ounce jig with a Zoom big salty chunk on it. So and like I said, you can catch some fish early on the top water, early and late on the top water, you know, in and around the points and the flooded cover too. But those have been the two primary deals for me: the swim bait deep and the flipping, you know, with the heavier rigs. Now Grand has been really a surprise lately. The deep bite at Grand has gotten super tough. It was really good for the past 3 or 4 weeks. A lot of fish out there just basically in that, you know, 10 to 20 foot zone off of main lake points. But for some reason, and I don't really know exactly what it is because I can't really put my finger on it. I've fished the lake for so many years, and I'm usually, you know, pretty dialed into what the fish are doing there. But for some reason, it's gotten very difficult to catch those deep fish at Grand. You know, I'm not seeing a lot of fish on my electronics. I'm not getting the bites that I was 3 or 4 weeks ago, you know, deep cranking or on a football head jig. It's just like they've started to filter out to other depths. And, you know, for me, anytime that they start doing that, that's when I start fishing that mid-depth zone range, sort of that 5 to 10 foot zone. And that's what I'll be focusing on a lot today with my instructional fishing trip, is that mid-depth zone of fishing. And when I'm fishing that, here again, I'm you know basically fishing a lot of stuff like hard heads, some football head jigs, some big worms, you know, crankbaits again like the Deep X 300, like on a 15-pound line, gets it down to that 5 to 10 foot zone. And I'm basically looking for these you know, rough spots, whether it be, you know, broken rock, you know, any type of rough cover, you know, some isolated wood. But to me, when they get off of that deep bite at Grand, on that hard structure deep bite, you know, they get on that broken rock at Grand. And a lot of times you can get out off those points, you can get out off those flat banks and just graph around for those rough spots in 5 to 10 foot of water, and you catch a lot of fish like that. Ever since the lake came down and it started to stabilize a little bit with the water clarity, the water's starting to clean up a little bit on the mid lake and the upper lake. It had been really muddy down there. You can start catching a few fish, basically fishing shallow wood and around docks, which is typical Grand Lake fishing. And so there's a lot of different ways to catch them at Grand right now. And Grand, like I said, it's like there's a transition period. Grand is really good, and you catch a lot of big bags of fish towards the end of May and almost second, third week of June. There's like a 3 or 4 week window every year after the post spawn that those big fish get really catchable out deep, and then it just every week after that into July, August, and September, it gradually gets tougher and tougher and tougher, and the fish, like I said, they start to scatter out. There'll be guys catching them off deep brush one day. There's some guys that'll do good fishing up the river one day. Guys doing good on release fish. It mixes it up quite a bit. And then with Grand, you throw in the extreme amount of fishing pressure from high quality anglers, tournament pressure. It just makes it even tougher sometimes. So anyway, that's sort of the report there. Like I said, we're starting to get in the transition phase a little bit. That's what bass fishing is all about. It's the fish are constantly moving, constantly transitioning, based upon environmental factors. And that's one of the neat things about doing these reports is I really enjoy, sharing with everybody, a little bit about these fish movements, and it just makes it easier a lot of time. Because I know, when I started fishing years ago, one of the most frustrating things that there was I wanted to go out and catch fish so bad, and a lot of times when I wouldn't go catch fish, it was very frustrating. So, having somebody to share some information and some experience with you, it, really goes a long way. So I really want to try to give some back right now, and, let everybody have, that experience of having a good day on the water. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate everybody that's subscribing to the channel and watching the videos. I really do. And I'll keep you all updated and let you know how it goes. See you later.